Mr. Alexis Tsipras wants to renegotiate the repayment terms of $274 billion loans. European creditors, though, are insisting Athens sticks to earlier agreements and continues economic reforms. We can get more now from John Soropoulos, who is in Athens. Any word coming out of this meeting? What's being discussed there?
Hello, Jane. The Eurogroup meeting, which is the Council of the Single Currency Bloc Finance Ministers, we understand, has now begun just under an hour ago, with the Greek Finance Minister entering about 10 minutes late. We're not sure exactly why that happened, but we are being told that there was a rather tempestuous meeting between him and the chairman of the Eurogroup just before the conference began. We do not know what the contents of that discussion was. Now, the point of this Eurogroup meeting today is to discuss what concrete proposals Greece will put forward to its European creditors in order to address, first and foremost, what they see as a fiscal gap. That means a difference between the amount of tax revenue the 2015 budget says is going to be collected this year and what amount of tax revenue creditors believe will actually be collected. They believe that there's going to be a shortfall of about $4.5 billion, and that amount represents a rise from the previous assumption at the end of last year that there was going to be a shortfall of about $3 billion. That means that Greece's fiscal situation in the eyes of creditors is slipping, and that is going to be a major cause for concern in today's meeting. Also under discussion, of course, will be the points of agreement versus disagreement on the memorandum of austerity policies and reform between Greece and its creditors. The major disagreement there is going to be the labour deregulation reforms that creditors have been demanding since 2010. Syriza has very clearly stated it has no intention of deregulating the labour market here and wants to reverse some of the steps previously undertaken.
So clearly a lot at stake here, John. Why is it being billed as a make or break meeting?
Well, it may not exactly be Greece's last opportunity to speak with its creditors and negotiate the so-called bridge or truce period that Greece has asked for of 4 months. What Greece wants is for its creditors to finance this period of 4 months so that the two sides can sit down and negotiate without there being the constant deadlines of debt payoffs and bond maturities which present payment dates for the Greek government. What they would like is for the memorandum to be effectively suspended for a very brief period. Now, I don't think that this is necessarily the last chance. There is talk of another possible emergency Eurogroup meeting within the week. But what is at stake is whether Greece can establish enough common ground with its creditors to encourage them to continue talking. Otherwise, the danger is that they will lose faith in the commitment of this government to actually come to an agreement with its creditors and will start thinking more in terms of a controlled Greek exit from the Eurozone.
Thank you for that, John Soropoulos. Sri Lanka's new president is on his first official overseas trip to India. Maithripala Sirisena met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, where they signed a deal on nuclear cooperation. Both leaders spoke about increasing trade and resolving the long-standing issue of repatriation of Tamil refugees living in India. Nidhi Dutt has more from New Delhi.
Well, in many respects, the visit from President Sirisena to India is all about China. On the one hand, Sirisena is saying that India, you're still an important part of our foreign policy and relationships in the region, and we'll work with you as well as China. And India is saying to Sri Lanka at the moment, we would like to play a greater role and we'd like you to come closer to the India story as opposed to moving towards China. We've got more in common from culture and religion as well as the trade and economic reasons to be closer to each other. Both leaders from Sri Lanka and India have agreed on a number of things, from the civil nuclear deal to talk more about the Polk Strait fishing dispute. However, one thing that seems to have been held way back from the agenda is what to do with tens of thousands of refugees, Sri Lankan refugees, that currently live in Tamil Nadu. Now the war has ended, there is a new government in Sri Lanka, and both sides have been looking at the future for these refugees, many of whom who want to go home, but they say that until the uncertainty is resolved, until they know what they're going back to, the situation remains difficult for them. While we haven't heard much from Sirisena and Prime Minister Modi on this visit, there are hopes that more will come of this issue, that will be more concrete plans going forward when Prime Minister Modi visits Colombo next month.
Two Al Jazeera journalists are out on bail after 411 days in jail in Egypt, but their fight for justice isn't over yet. Baha Mohammed and Mohammed Fahmy are still charged with colluding with the banned Muslim Brotherhood. Their previous conviction was thrown out and their retrial is set for February the 23rd. Peter Grester was also charged, but has arrived back in Australia after being released. South Korea is facing a demographic crisis. Its population is aging, and last year birth rates dropped to their lowest level on record. Now that's prompted the government to offer some parents a special bonus for having a third child. From Hwensong County, Harry Fawcett reports.
Hwensong County looks like much of rural South Korea. Steep valleys, small farms, bypassed by the modernity this country is famous for. But this quiet place is on the forefront of an issue stalking this nation: aging. This community of elderly farmers has made close bonds because they need to. So many of their children have moved away. Lifelong friendships have become ever more important.
All my daughters-in-laws are working, so if I go to their place, it becomes bothersome for all of us. So it's better to live separately, and when I die, I guess my sons will come and take me with them.
Kim says the youngsters cook lunch every day. Here the youngsters are women in their 60s. The men eat in a separate room. They share comradeship, but also a sense that their village is in terminal decline.
My kids have nice houses in the city. Why would they want to come here and live in a shabby house in the rural area? Living in the countryside is tough. Once my generation ends, it's the end.
Even in Hwensong's more urban areas, a quarter of the population is above 65. This is the fastest aging place in South Korea. The local government provides social care for those living alone, but at budget-fraying cost.
It's a national problem. The age issue is catching up in the cities as well as in the rural areas.
In a sign of this county's demographic slide, the local government